Buddy, welcome to the Upper Hand Fantasy Podcast. We are live. It's Friday. Got a lot to talk about. Bunch of injuries going into the weekend. We're going to talk about Thursday Night Football. A lot of stuff that happened in yesterday's game. Also, we're going to go into our wide receiver rankings, our tight end rankings going into the weekend. Hope everyone's doing well. Zach, what's up, man? How you doing?
Doing good. Last night was an interesting game. It's too bad Tua had to get hurt. Some doctors that told him that he could go back in last week are in some deep shit today.
They are.
Because,
the NFL PA, they're definitely going to look into that. I mean, I thought they were already looking into it last week.
Yeah, that's what they said. So that just doubles it. That makes it twice as bad for whoever said that he could play. I mean, he looked fine playing before that, and it wasn't like, he just got tapped and breathed on and, he had his hands all mangled. I don't know if you saw that, but it's like, and they kept showing that same replay for some reason. If you're watching the actual game, it was like, why do they keep showing it? But
I know.
Yeah, so
I know.
It just sucks to see that. He was like slung down. It wasn't like he was just breathed on. So that it was just an unfortunate break. And now it's just all in the spotlight right now. That's a completely different topic, but definitely interesting.
Yeah, man. It sucks, dude. It sucks. Like, hopefully, I'm hoping that Tua can get right. Right. He takes some time to get right. Right. It was a pretty scary situation.
Maybe he takes some time to, recover this time.
I hope so, man. He had to be rushed to the hospital by ambulance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, he flew home with the team, and obviously the player in him probably wants to just get back on the field, but he needs to take the time.
That's the thing, right? Like the player always wants to just get back in the field. Like player who gets a concussion, if you ask the player what they want to do, they're gonna be like, "Hey, man, like I want to get back into the game right now."
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it sucks. It sucks. He said, and the team said that it was his back that locked up in week 3. And it's interesting. And I don't know, man, like there were independent concussion, specialists, neurologists or whatever that deemed it not a concussion. The PA, NFL PA, apparently opened up an investigation on it. And I don't know if they found anything. I didn't hear anything about that, but, obviously makes the situation look a lot worse because, it was only 4 days after he took that big hit in week 3, right? It wasn't like even a week. It's only 4 days. That's the tough part about it.
100%.
T. Higgins went through a similar thing too. I mean, not all that similar, but like, he was in the concussion protocol. He got hit big in week 1, right? He left early. He was in the concussion protocol between week 1 and week 2. He was cleared for week 2. And then he took a big hit in week 3. I don't know if you remember that not last night, but last week on Sunday, he took a big hit and he came right back in the game. So that's like 2 concussions potentially in the matter of 14 days, but he was deemed fine, and it's pretty scary to me, dude. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, we actually went a pretty decently long time, I think, without having like too many notable concussion injuries, but now it's just like all crashing in these past few days. But yeah, no, Tua not being there is big fantasy implications too. We'll get to that.
We will. And, just want to talk about this Tua thing because, like, it's pretty, like, for the sake of these players, I think there needs to be more done, right? Like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but, like, I have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to this stuff. Like, but from a layman's perspective, it seems like not enough is being done, right? Like, I have 2 kids. I got 2 small daughters, so I doubt they have any aspirations to go to the NFL. But, like, if I had a son, like, it would be really hard for me, just where we're at, in what we know about it, right? Like, it would be hard for me to have them play football. Like, I'm from New York City. Like, there's not a big, like, grow up and play football, like organized football, like for your high school, whatever. There's not a big culture of that. But I'm in New Jersey now. I'm in the town of New Jersey, and these kids start at 3rd grade. Like, their football program in this town starts in the 3rd grade.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then they go all the way. They're hitting and tackling each other in the 3rd grade, and then they go all the way up through high school. Obviously, if they play in college. What is that? That's you're 8 in 3rd grade. You get out of college at like 20, 21, 22. So that's like 13, 14 years of hitting and getting hit.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and
like,
that's before anything happens on an NFL field, which is just crazy.
And even like even if your kid doesn't make it to the NFL, most likely it won't. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's 14 years of getting hit. You know what I'm saying? Like, all the future potential ramifications there. Like, I don't know, man. That'd be super tough for me, dude.
I hear it 100%. I mean, they have those like goofy looking Guardian caps that they wear in practice, but like, I mean, you could say that's doing something for them, but I'm not really sure. You think they'd find a way to like put that into the helmet and then have it worn on like game day, like instead of making it like this big poofy cloud thing.
Yeah,
It's
and
supposed to help.
it's only for blockers. It's only for like linemen and
Yeah,
tight ends.
and
So
a couple teams, I think like the Steelers had everybody wear them, like just
oh,
by
that's right.
as a
That's right.
coaching policy. That was Mike Tomlin. But
I remember
like
that.
I said, you feel like they would put it like in the helmet. Like I'm
Yeah, I don't
obviously
know.
it's easy for us to say, oh yeah, just put it in the helmet, like, but it looks really goofy on top. And if it helps, you think they'd incorporate it or
I
have
know.
incorporated it already. I'm not sure. Like I said, we're just guys out here throwing ideas out. We don't know anything that goes into it,
I
but
don't know.
it's just a
Tough.
thought.
It is. All right.
We
Let's get
digress.
back to the game itself
Yeah.
from last night. Tyreek Hill, he ended up with a solid game with 14 targets. Jalen Waddle had a game, kind of to forget, when it comes to the stat sheet. Tyreek, he had that 40-yard bomb, not from Tua, but from Teddy Two Gloves,
Yeah.
right? And, like before Tua got hurt, like before he got the concussion, like, the offseason narrative of Tua not being able to deliver that deep ball, we did see that firsthand in that first half, when he threw that interception because he was trying to hit Tyreek in stride. He ended up overthrowing it pretty badly, and it ended up being an interception. So, something to keep an eye on. Obviously, Tyreek was able to do his thing the first couple of weeks of the season, but something that is we're going to potentially see a little bit more of that, throughout the year. But I'm not worried about it in terms of his fantasy value.
Yeah.
Raheem Mostert, he was a clear RB1 on Thursday night. 72% of the snaps, 18 opportunities. He ran a route on 67% of dropbacks. That's a very clear, very preferential treatment from Mike
Yeah.
McDaniel. Obviously Chase Edmonds, he had the touchdown. He almost had 2 touchdowns, right? When he dropped that pass. Maybe it's possible that, that was very early. Like, I think it was their first drive where he dropped that touchdown pass, if I'm not mistaken, first or second
I
drive.
think it was, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
because they settled for a
so
field goal. That's what it was.
it's possible that, that led to, Mostert getting
You
most
got
of
like
the
a
workout.
doghouse. Yeah.
Maybe, what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if that's the case. Like, a drop pass, like, I don't know if he's gonna like be benched because of it.
Yeah.
It's different if you like fumble or something like that, right? But who knows? But yeah, Mostert, he was the early down leader, goal line leader, third down leader, 2-minute snap leader. And if something like that sticks for any running back, that's every week RB2 with upside. So, the question is obviously, will it stick, right? So we don't know that for sure. This could go back and forth, but for now, like if you grab them on waivers this past week, I feel like you're kind of feeling good about it, because he can potentially be someone you can actually put in your lineup. Whereas coming into the week, you had no idea.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And we've talked about Chase Edmonds a lot and how we thought that he would have the workload that kind of Raheem Mostert's getting right now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of disappointing. You know what I'm saying?
It's very disappointing.
Raheem Mostert, you got to I'm not going to say you got to wonder about how his health is going to hold up, but he is an older back,
Exactly.
Like Chase Edmonds is very dynamic. I don't see, like, even though he got the majority of touches this week, I don't see it staying as like the Raheem Mostert show and then Chase Edmonds coming in every little bit. I think it's going to find its way back to more of an even split. Even if Raheem Mostert's getting 60% of the work as opposed to Chase Edmonds getting 40, it shouldn't be that bad for Chase Edmonds. But right now, they said they ride the hot hand, I think. So, you want to start whoever the hot hand is right now. If it's Chase Edmonds, start Chase. If Chase Edmonds has a good week, start Chase Edmonds. If what's his name? Raheem Mostert has a good week like he's had the past 2 weeks, start him until further notice because I feel like it's just going to flip-flop all season.
It could very well be the case. T Higgins, man, beast mode. And this is info from Jacob Gibbs over at CBS Fantasy. When him and Jamar Chase have been on the field together during their careers, Higgins has had more targets, more catches, more yards, more PPR fantasy points. And as of right now, he has one less PPR fantasy point than Chase for the year. So that's basically one catch for 0 yards in PPR, pretty much. So they're basically pretty even at this. They're like pretty much dead even at this point. So, I would assume Jamar Chase finishes as a wide receiver 1. And if T. Higgins continues to do what he's doing, he's likely going to finish as our wide receiver 1 as well. So we'll see how that works. Obviously, where you drafted Jamar Chase, you were hoping that, the upside is greater. But I do feel like his upside, he's going to have some big games. Quiet, over the last couple of weeks. But he still had some production. So, we should continue to see some boom weeks from Ja'Marr Chase going forward.
Yeah, and that's just the way the Bengals offense is going to be. Like I said, Joe Burrow seems to be distributing the ball a lot better than he did last season. It was all like the Ja'Marr Chase show, and now it's kind of, anybody who's open is going to be involved. Ja'Marr Chase didn't have like a shortage of targets. It's not like he didn't get his looks. He had 6 targets. He caught 4 of them for 81 yards. It's not a bad stat line. You finish the night with 12 points. No one's going to be like angry at that. But maybe knowing his upside, you might be a little bit upset. But T. Higgins is very talented too. And we talked about it yesterday on the podcast, how he's pretty much a wide receiver 1 on a lot of teams if he's not playing alongside Ja'Marr Chase. And they both are technically wide receiver 1s. But really, as long as Joe Burrow is at quarterback and the Bengals are actually starting to look like the Bengals now, I think both receivers have the upside every week to be, overall wide receiver 1. It doesn't necessarily mean they're both going to cash in on the same week or have that complete upside, but I think they have the chance to do that because they're both supremely talented in a good offense with a great quarterback. And obviously, Joe Burrow likes throwing to Chase and Higgins. He doesn't really seem to be favoring either one right now, and that's actually good from a fantasy perspective. Good for the league, not necessarily for one team over another, but don't worry about Chase not scoring a touchdown. He'll get touchdowns. We saw it in his rookie year. We'll see it again this year. Just keep starting them, and they're both automatic starts. You can have both of them, I think, as wide receiver 1s on your team.
Zach Taylor, like his play calling was just confusing to me. It's just like there was so many opportunities for them to score, but he just wants to run Joe Mixon up the middle, like every single play, and it wasn't working the whole time. It wasn't working, right? So now, going at the end of the game, he wants to do the same thing with Joe Mixon. It's like, dude, like especially on first down, it's like there are higher percentage type of plays out there, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to do that. You have T. Higgins, you have Ja'Marr Chase, you have Tyler Boyd, even. Like, there's a mismatch here. You're gonna be able to figure it out, So like, you gotta get a little bit more creative, man.
If you have Joe Mixon, you're loving the usage, but you got to be wondering, like there's a lot left on the table. I think 24 carries for 61 yards. He did have 4 catches, so that was kind of helping him. And I think he actually had a couple other catches next because they were like technically backwards passes and it counted as a pitch and not a catch.
Yeah, I saw that.
I saw like 2 or 3 of those where, I'd look down and be like, oh, another Joe Mixon catch, and it would register as a 2-yard carry. I was like, okay. But you were probably disappointed if you saw that last night. But the usage is there. I mean, clearly they're happy to use them. So
yeah, if I had Joe Mixon, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
But just overall from a Bengals like offense perspective, just like have the offense kind of like create on their own, it wasn't ideal last night.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, you're super happy with the usage with Joe Mixon, but you feel like, he has 24 carries. He should have more than 61 yards,
Yeah.
So that
100%.
that kind of signals, if the Bengals offense would sit back, the coach would sit back and be like, okay, what isn't working? Like, that would be the first thing that I'd key in on. I would say that maybe Joe Mixon would have some of his carries taken away. Not necessarily taken away, but they wouldn't hand it to him as much.
Yeah, or just like create better running angles, create better running plays. There's a bunch of stuff that they could do.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, they saw on that first drive, they just had the whole offensive line push Joe Mixon in the end zone. They said, oh, maybe we could do that every play.
Pretty much.
That was the philosophy there.
Seriously, man. All right, let's get into the wide receiver rankings. We got no surprise. Actually, it might be a surprise for some people, but no surprise. Stephon Diggs has been absolutely killing it. He's at number 1. He's been balling, right? One of the best matchups on the slate against Baltimore, who's getting up the most fantasy points to wide receivers, the 3rd most fantasy points to perimeter wide receivers over the first 3 weeks. So you're obviously starting Stephon Diggs, no doubt about it. Cooper Kupp at number 2. In 2 games against San Francisco last year, he caught 7 balls in each of them for 120 yards in each of them and caught a touchdown in each of those games. So he's looking like he's going to be just fine.
What's your projection?
I would say like maybe like 7 for 120 and maybe I think he scores.
You think he hits pay dirt? Yeah.
I think so.
Sounds about right.
We got Justin Jefferson at number 3. Hoping for a bounce back for him. He's going to see shadow coverage most likely from Marshawn Lattimore, who's been playing pretty well so far this year. Still, regardless, obviously he's in your lineup. Tyreek Hill at number 4. Obviously, I had this before coming into the week, but had a very solid game last night. He didn't hit the end zone, but had a very solid 25-point performance without even scoring.
Which I think that's a good ranking for 25 points.
Without even scoring a touchdown. The dude is a beast, man.
Yeah.
The dude's a beast. I had Jamar Chase at 5. I had T. Higgins down at, I think it was 11. I had him at 12. We took out Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now he's at 11 as a wide receiver 1. Devonta Adams at 6. We're hoping he gets some damn receiving yards this week, right? Denver has been pretty good defending wide receivers so far. Not the easiest matchup in the world. It's possible that Patrick Surtain shadows him. That's a very likely possibility in this game. And the hope is that he's kind of left on an island with him, because if you leave Devonta Adams on an island with anybody, he's going to tear them apart. He's going to eat them alive. And despite Surtain having a pretty good start to his season, still Devonta Adams we're talking about.
That's what I was going to say.
The hope is that Derek Carr finds him.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. With Devonta Adams, it doesn't matter if he's being shadowed or if he's on an island with anybody. He's going to win at least 50% of the reps. It's not going to be like, oh, well, he's being shadowed. Now you can't throw to Devonta Adams. I think who they play last week? Tennessee. I think Tennessee did a really good job neutralizing Devonta Adams. Of course, that let Mac Hollins leak out and just go crazy. But it seems like the formula for stopping Devonta Adams is 3 guys in coverage against him, and that worked pretty well for Tennessee, at least if you're looking to neutralize Devonta Adams' production. I'd look for him to get back to Devonta Adams things this week. I think it's a divisional game. It'll be a hard-fought one. I think it could end up being higher scoring. We just keep waiting for this Broncos offense to kind of come out, and show us that it's like what we thought it would be, and it hasn't yet. So it's just like any week now. So maybe this is the week. It's a divisional game. It could be. It's just the way those games tend to go. I do like Devonta Adams at 6, but he, the matchup on paper isn't ideal.
Yeah, but it's Devonta. He scored a touchdown each of the last 3 weeks. I think he can get it done this week. The hope is that they don't double him, but with the potential shadow coverage, there's a chance that they don't.
Yeah,
that's the hope. AJ Brown at number 7. Solid matchup for him against Jacksonville. I had Jalen Waddle at 8. He had to overcome a groin issue. He had to overcome Tua leaving the game in the second quarter. Didn't stop Tyreek Hill, but Jalen Waddle, it wasn't ideal coming into the week overall, right? He didn't practice, or he got limited in at least on Tuesday. Short week, whatever. We'll give him the pass. The guy who was leading the league or close to leading the league in receiving yards with Tyreek Hill, we'll give him a pass for 1 week.
Yeah. And he was technically ranked at 9 before Amon-Ra St. Brown was pulled out. So, just true. if that discrepancy, makes it look any better.
He was on this first line though.
Yeah.
I had Michael Pittman at number 9. This is a great matchup against Tennessee. They've given up the most fantasy points to perimeter wide receivers so far through 3 games. Second most specifically on the side where Pittman runs 50% of his routes from, on the left side against Christian Fulton. But either side, honestly, against Terrence Mitchell too, he has a chance to eat this week. Now, that being said, most of that production has come from Stephon Diggs, right? When he tore them up a couple weeks ago on Monday Night Football.
And Mac Hollins. Don't forget Mac Hollins.
Can't forget Mac Hollins. That's true. So one thing to, always keep in mind is the potential double team here, right? Stephon Diggs destroyed them in week 2. Then they doubled Devonta Adams all game long last week. So hopefully Matt Ryan can still find spots for Pittman and they can get creative and get him the ball. Right. And they don't just, this is a situation where their main receiver here, is Michael Pittman, and there's a big drop off after Michael Pittman. So do they choose to do what they did to Devonta Adams last week? It is possible. Okay. You obviously start Michael Pittman. You're hoping that doesn't happen. You're hoping he gets his, but you never know. Maybe we see like Ashton Doolin, get 100 yards and a touchdown this week, and everyone's going to go grab him off the waiver wire the following week. But who knows?
Right.
At 10, we have Mike Evans making his return. I expect him to be peppered with targets this week. It's a situation where Julio Jones is banged up because Godwin's likely out. Russell Gage got a bunch of targets last week, but I think it's going to be the Mike Evans show against Kansas City this week.
That's what it has to be.
It has to be.
Even with when Russell Gage was on the field himself, it wasn't like a tremendous output. And maybe that's because, like I talked about in the other episode, he's more of a complimentary receiver. But Mike Evans is the guy. And this is the guy we've been pinning the whole offseason to kind of be a target hog for Tom Brady because, if he wasn't suspended, this is the constant in the receiving game. It's Mike Evans. So Tom Brady's going to, gravitate towards that in the passing game.
Dude, they get on each other's nerves, man. Like Mike Evans can't control himself when it comes to Marshawn Lattimore. Like he cannot control himself. He's just like, I hate this guy with all my guts.
Yeah,
but we got
hilarious.
we got T. Higgins at 11, CeeDee Lamb at 12, Keenan Allen at 13. There was a report that Allen left practice early with trainers. So, there was no other word than that. Like usually that's not a great sign.
Yeah.
Maybe he tweaked his hamstring again. And if that's the case, we might be looking at another week of him being out. So when somebody leaves with trainers in practice early, that's never a great sign. We'll get more information. They are on the West Coast, so it'll be later in the day when we get that information. Hopefully, we get some good news because I do have him in the league and I really need to start him. But if he gets another limited, my guess is that he should be good to go. But we'll see what his practice status is for Friday. If he did tweak it, my assumption is he won't practice today and he won't play. So
that's fingers crossed that's not what happened. You know what I'm saying? Because Keenan Allen's very good.
Yes. Debo at 14, Christian Kirk at 15, Cortland Sutton at 16, followed by Marquise Brown, Amari Cooper, Curtis Samuel, and Deontay Johnson to close out the top 20. Really hard to ignore 2 straight 10-plus target games, 100-yard games for Amari Cooper. He caught a touchdown in both games as well. I'm going to keep riding that production. I was going to say keep riding him. I did not. Keep riding that production against an Atlanta secondary, giving up a ton of fantasy points to wide receivers. 4th most so far through 4 weeks. He might get a shadow from AJ Terrell, but Terrell himself, he has allowed half a fantasy point per route run against him so far this year. That's not good. He's a good corner, but so far this year in shadow coverage, he hasn't been shut down. So not worried about it for Amari Cooper.
And, I might go as far as say is like Amari Cooper's the start of the week for me. He's the start of the week for me. He might not necessarily be the upside guy, but, you can start him pretty confidently, I think, this week. With the way he's been playing, the connection that he and Jacoby Brissett have obviously showed the past 2 weeks. He's obviously talented. You'd be surprised to hear that the Browns got him for peanuts from Dallas. But, he is a good route runner. So I don't think the matchup being shadowed is going to hurt him that much. He's not a Devontae Adams, but he is still good. He can survive on an island. And like you said, the matchup is great. I think this has Amari Cooper, maybe a 3rd straight 100-yard performance if things go right. I don't see how Amari Cooper underperforms in this one. So that's why I'm calling him start of the week.
Oh, baby. I love it. All right. Going to number 21 here, we have Drake London, certified stud. Chris Olave. We got 2 rookies in the top 24 here. Top 2, top 24 wide receivers. That's pretty good, right? Top 24. And then I got Gabe Davis at 23. But looking at Olave real quick, his usage over the past 2 weeks has been insane, right? We haven't seen him with Andy Dalton, right? So there's no guarantee that we see similar usage. But Olave, he seems to be getting open with ease, right? And I'm okay playing Olave with Michael Thomas out. Oh, we didn't even get to the news. I had a bunch of news to talk about, but I just realized right now that we didn't get into the news at all.
We could jump into that maybe after the wide receiver rankings.
Let's do after wide receiver rankings. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so stay tuned for the news. We got news. We got players to talk about going into the week. But yeah, so spoiler alert from the news: Michael Thomas has been declared out. Okay, so Chris Olave, I have him here at 22, and he's a wide receiver 2. I was going to rank him as a wide receiver 2 or close to it with Michael Thomas in. So considering that Jameis Winston's out, and then I still think he's going to get his target share, right? It's going to be him and Jarvis Landry pretty much. Potential more check downs like Alvin Kamara, who, by the way, spoiler alert from the news, it looks like he's going to play. Despite him being questionable, he still has a rib injury, still bothering him apparently. So, keep an eye out for that, but he should get peppered in the pass game more from Andy Dalton than he was from Jameis Winston. That's what I'm assuming. Nick Underhill, who is a beat reporter for New Orleans, he said the same thing. Nick Underhill's the best because he knows that people are following him on Twitter for fantasy like tidbits and stuff like that. He's awesome. He's one of the best beat reporters in the nation when it comes to that kind of stuff. But yeah, like I'm okay starting Olave. I want to start him. There's a ton of upside. Not as much with Jameis, in the lineup because he loves to chuck it down deep to Olave.
Check it down deep.
Check it down deep.
That's how Jameis Winston checks. That's how Jameis Winston checks it down. He just throws it.
I meant to say chuck it deep.
Yeah.
but check it down deep. That doesn't make any sense at
No,
all.
it does work. Like I said, in
Does it?
James
Check
Winston's
it
case,
down deep.
did
Check
you
it down
see
deep.
the play where he just threw it into the fray last week, where Marquez Callaway caught it with one hand?
Oh, for the touchdown?
Yeah, that's how.
Yes.
That was a pick, 100%. If Marquez Callaway doesn't make a one-handed like spectacular
Listen,
trap,
man, that's Jameis Winston for you.
that's
right
how
there,
he
man.
checks it down. He just throws it.
So true. That's so true. He just looks for wherever it's crowded and he just throws it into that.
Someone's
crowd.
out there.
Yeah, fuck it. All right. Let's see. We got Gabe Davis at 23 now. Davis, he came back last week, right, from that ankle injury. He ran a route on 96% of dropbacks in week 3. He ran around on 100% of dropbacks in week 1, yet only accounted for 16% target share and 11% target share. Not good. Okay.
Right.
He didn't practice on Thursday, which isn't great. And apparently he has aggravated that ankle injury. And his head coach talked about that. It seems like he's good to go. Seems like he's going to play. No guarantee yet. So make sure you have another option if you were planning on starting Gabe Davis. But he did aggravate the ankle injury. Well, maybe aggravate's the wrong word. He used the word like tweet, I think.
No, I think it was the report that I saw said aggravated.
It did? Okay.
Yeah.
Aggravate. There you go. So the problem here is that I love this matchup. Right? I love this matchup against the Ravens, and I want to play Gabe Davis. So, like, if he's active, I'm going to play him. Okay? I'm going to play him because the matchup is too good. The Ravens have allowed the most fantasy points to wide receivers. They've allowed the third most fantasy points to outside wide receivers. Like, I want to play him. So, it is what it is. I'll take the L, if he doesn't end up doing so good, but I don't want to leave that type of upside on my bench.
Yeah, you can't deny the upside. And that's Gabe Davis's MO. It's the big play.
It's the big play.
This is, a defense that has allowed a lot of big plays, and Josh Allen's riding into town as quarterback. He's the guy throwing you the ball. Gabe Davis 100% is a start just off of the upside alone as long as he's playing.
Here's what I'm going to say about Gabe Davis, though. If he has another game with low target share, like 16% or lower, and he scores a touchdown, I'm selling him.
Yeah,
I think so. Because it's just not good. Like, you don't want under 20% target share, even if it's a good offense. Like, I don't know. I'm not, because I think that if he scores in this game, he's going to have an aura around him where he's like a must start player every week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you drafted him to be that guy, right? And then he kind of has another performance where he scores a touchdown. Week 1 was solid, like in terms of production, not necessarily target share. So yeah, but we will reassess on Monday, right? We'll see what happens in this game. But yeah,
Gabe Davis, it's kind of his legendary status since the divisional round game, and we're like, why couldn't that have happened during the regular season when fantasy points actually count? But so.
I'm sure a lot of people want some money off of Gabe Davis.
Yeah, absolutely. He's still riding that. He's still riding that value. I think from that production, he now has inflated value. Even though he had a rough week last week and the target share isn't there, people saw what he could be, and it's weird because people are clinging on to that, and we're seeing Stephon Diggs do the same thing. Now the target share has moved towards Stephon Diggs as opposed to one game of Gabe Davis. He's benefiting big time off of name value right now, just because of that. It's recency bias, you could say, from that game. And you don't want to write him off completely. He had a solid week 1, and then week 2, just the production wasn't. Well, his second week, which was week 3, wasn't spectacular at all. So you don't want to write him off this fast, but it's worth considering given his underlying usage.
It's worth considering. It's always that. It's always the case. Because you don't want to give up. These type of opportunities. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
All right. So to round out the top 30, I have DK at 24, Mike Williams at 25, McLaurin, Rashad Bateman at 26 and 27, followed by Devontae Smith, who, by the way, he got a significant boost in the rankings. I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah, 100%.
After he looked like Randy Moss last week. Okay. Yeah. He was looking like Slim a different receiver. Slim Randy Moss. Randy Moss is already slim as hell, dude. But shorter and slimmer, I guess you could say. But dude, didn't he look good last week? Like he looked like a different wide receiver.
Did. Yeah. I didn't know if he had that, and we talked about it on a couple episodes ago where I didn't really know Devontae Smith had that in him. I knew him as a crisp route runner, sliding underneath in between guys, beating the zones. I didn't know he had the one-on-one prowess like that. So that was nice to see. That definitely has me tuned in a little bit more. I'm going to be keeping an eye on him this week.
Someone needs to clip that, what Zach just said. Just clip that soundbite and just send it over to me. Faraz at upperhandfantasy.com. 23% target share and 36% target share over the last 2 games on a pass-first offense. That's what you want to see. 24% for the year. A.J. Brown is at 31%, right? So this is what you want. Okay, going forward, I think he's a solid start.
Yeah.
Now, real quick on Terry McLaurin. He'll likely be shadowed by Trevon Diggs. And, what have you seen from Diggs so far this year? Like, he's not getting the picks, but he seems to have upped his game as far as coverage goes.
He's a better overall corner. And, I'm not going to sit here, I'm the resident Cowboys fan. I'm not going to sit here and just blow smoke up his ass. Trevon Diggs, this is the guy, he's top cornerback, whatever. But he's much better. He's a much more sound overall corner than he was last season, even though he only has 1 pick this season, and that's good.
Oh, he does. I didn't even know he had
it was the end of the game, desperation Daniel Jones throw. Who isn't going to intercept that? But but Trevon Diggs, he's been very good, I think, in coverage so far. He's not allowing big plays. You'll look at receivers' productions against Dallas, and you might see a little bit there, but it's not necessarily Trevon Diggs covering. Like the number 1 guy. And you say about Trevon Diggs maybe shadowing Terry McLaurin, but that might not be the case because he hasn't really shadowed. He didn't really shadow Mike Evans. He certainly didn't shadow Jamar Chase. I think they had 3 targets. 3 targets, 1 catch, 14 yards, was it? Or 2 catches for 14 yards.
Yeah, it is possible. So, he has only played on the right side of the defense on 95% of his snaps so far this year. So it's very possible that he chooses not to shadow Terry McLaurin. And on an offense where they have other weapons, right? They have Curtis Samuel, right? They have
Jahan
Dotson on the outside
they might not
as well. Why shadow Terry McLaurin? Because these other guys are extremely capable.
Yeah. Dallas' defense is much better than it used to be. If you remember a couple seasons ago, 2 seasons ago, they were like statistically worse. So it's been a big turnaround. Nobody's really gashed them yet. So maybe this could be the game. Washington, even though they had a bad week last week, they have a very good passing attack. They just have to keep Wentz clean. We see that's the formula to hold up the passing game for Washington is to get the Wentz before he can get the ball to his receivers. Because the receivers are very dynamic, very good talent. They have plenty of talent as receiver, and he'll pick you apart if you let him.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we got Garrett Wilson and Juju to round out the top 30. I think Juju is a buy, man. 25% target share in week 1, went 6 for 79, dud in a tough matchup in week 2, and then 21% target share in week 3. He went 5 for 89 in that game. The dude just hasn't scored a touchdown, right? And if he did, I think the narrative around him would be completely different. And that's why we talked about buying him after week 2. There's still an opportunity here, I think, because if he had a touchdown in either week 1 or week 2 or week 3, we're looking at a 20-point game on his fantasy game log, right? If he scored in week 1 or if he scored in week 3. So it's a lot easier to trade for him now. Those touchdowns are going to come. And to me, it seems like he's Mahomes' clear number 1 wide receiver through 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. We saw what he can be in Pittsburgh, and he hasn't really reached that. And whether it's because of the decline of Big Ben at the end of his time in Pittsburgh, that's probably what it was. But now he's with Patrick Mahomes. And you look, what kind of competition does he have outside of Travis Kelce? I don't think there's anybody that Patrick Mahomes is really dialing in on and really just like hyper targeting. This is a guy we need to get the ball in the hands of. Juju Smith-Schuster is that guy. So you're right. If he did have a touchdown, we'd be talking about a lot different. What's his production compared to Terry McLaurin? Juju Smith-Schuster has a much different reputation than Terry McLaurin in the fantasy community. People are all about Terry McLaurin, but they're not really big on Juju. But I think their production has been pretty much the same, right?
Yeah, I think Terry McLaurin had 2 not so great games, and he finally had the 100-yard game last week. If I had to guess, I would guess that Juju has more receiving yards on the year.
Yeah.
But it could be close because, he didn't have much in week 2. But right. I'm looking it up right now. Let's see. So Juju he has 178 yards on the year, and McLaurin has 230, significantly higher, actually. And he has about 50 or 60 receiving yards more than Juju at this point. So he's 17th, which isn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know who's above Terry McLaurin so far? Over 3 weeks? Mac Hollins.
We're gonna keep going back to Mac Hollins.
Oh
and
yeah,
then it's gonna just keep leading. All roads lead to Devontae Adams not getting enough targets.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Imagine. Oh my God. All right. So if you want the rest of the wide receiver rankings, you can check out the Patreon, which is linked below, or you can go to upperhandfantasy.com. The first article there is going to be the rankings. You just got to sign into Patreon through that. It includes flex rankings and also will include blurbs on a ton of players with some matchup details and all that. And those blurbs will reveal some sleepers that I like for this week as well, and the players that I want to avoid. Now, before I get to tight ends, I want to talk, and we're going to get into the news right after this, but I want to talk about Underdog Fantasy and their pick'ems. If you know fantasy, if you play fantasy, you have a pretty solid idea of what the matchups look like and how these players are going to end up doing. What their opportunity looks like going into these games. So, why not check out all the different pick'em options Underdog Fantasy offers? All you have to do is take a look at the pick'ems. For example, like last night, we had Tyler Boyd higher or lower than 41.5 receiving yards. T. Higgins higher or lower than 65.5 receiving yards. Tyreek Hill higher or lower than 6 receptions. We did end up choosing higher on all of those. And you can collect a bunch of those pick'ems and put them into one entry, right? And if you chose higher on all of those three, like we did, you just 6x your money with those three selections in that one entry. So you can have an entry with 2 pick'ems, you can have them with 3 pick'ems, just like the one I mentioned, all the way up to 5 in one entry. And if you get all your pick'ems in your entry correct, then you end up multiplying all of your money, all the way up to 20x what you put in if you get 5 right. So you got to check it out. They even offer pick'em insurance where your multiplier ends up going down just a bit, but they give you a little bit of a leeway in terms of getting one of your picks wrong. So if you get one of your picks wrong with insurance on, you still win money. That's 2 things sports books don't do. Okay, one, they don't let you get any picks in your parlays wrong, right? You're going to lose no matter what if you get one of them wrong. And 2, they don't allow for correlation in one parlay. So I'm allowed to pick Tyreek Hill over receptions and over in yards, right? In one pick'em entry. You can't do that in a regular parlay, even in the same game parlay. So, on sports books, right? So check out Underdog Fantasy. Make sure to use the promo code UPPERHAND, all one word, to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Again, that's the code UPPERHAND, all one word, to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. The pick'ems are already up, by the way, for Sunday. So you can start putting in entries right now. So make sure you take a look at that. All right. So before we get into the tight ends, guys, news. I already talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's been declared out. Jared Goff, bit of a downgrade. TJ Hawkinson, bit of an upgrade. If you're desperate, the next wide receivers up are DJ Chark and Josh Reynolds. I lean Reynolds today. I think I leaned Chark yesterday. Tomorrow, we'll see where I lean. But as of right now, it's Reynolds. Who knows? It's anyone's guess, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas has been declared out, so Chris Olave gets that bump. We talked about that already. We talked about Andy Dalton being their starter. Christian McCaffrey, he practiced today, which is a good sign, but he's still listed as questionable. It looks like he's going to play, but I would still have another option ready just in case he can't go. We talked about Gabe Davis. Cordell Patterson, he didn't practice all week until today on Friday. He is on pace to play. Have a backup ready just in case for him. Dan Campbell said that DeAndre Swift is unlikely to play. No surprise there. Jamal Williams, borderline RB1 this week. If you watched yesterday's episode, we did rank him as, I think, overall RB10.
There's RB10. Like that. Is that what it was? Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, stay up to date, through my Instagram stories at Upper Hand Fantasy. I'll be continuing to update you guys as more news comes out going into the weekend.
And then, final note of news, not necessarily fantasy football related, but we do have a game in London, 9:30. So we have football all day on Sunday. That's pretty great.
Woohoo! You get to wake up. I can't wait to tell my wife that there's a game at 9:30. Can't wait. And by the way, like, if you are a Patreon member, in the upper tier that we do have, it's called the Upper Hand Die Hard. We are going to have a Zoom call at 10 a.m. or was it 10:30? I forgot. It's up there, but it's in the morning, a couple hours before kickoff. If you have any last minute questions, we get on a Zoom call together and we'll talk about all that. All right. Well, whatever decisions you have to make, we'll go through it together.
Right.
Let's hit the top 10 tight ends. Let's do that. Mark Andrews at number 1 here. Tough matchup, but potential fireworks in this game between the Bills and the Ravens. Travis Kelce at 2, Dallas Goedert all the way up at 3. Do you have more confidence in Darren Waller, George Kittle, Zach Ertz, Kyle Pitts than Goedert right now?
So this is gonna sound really weird because Kyle Pitts is he's floating all the way down at 7. I kind of like Kyle Pitts to challenge Dallas Goedert. Maybe it's just because everyone's high on Kyle Pitts. He had a better week last week, so I'm wondering if he can't build on that performance this week. They're at home. Actually, I just got a report saying that Myles Garrett might not play, so that might actually give Mariota a little bit more time, take a little pressure off of him to get the ball downfield more to Kyle Pitts. If I had to pick between who I think is going to perform better this week, I'd say Dallas Goedert, but I don't think Kyle Pitts is that far off from challenging him there.
So where would you put Kyle Pitts here? So we have Goddard at 3, followed by Waller, followed by Kittle, then Zach Ertz, and then I have Kyle Pitts at 7. Where would you place Kyle Pitts?
I would put Kyle Pitts probably at 5
above George Kittle.
Yeah,
I that makes sense. Now let me ask you this: would you put Ertz above Waller or Kittle? Like, I'm thinking about it. Like, I feel like I have him at 6 here.
Yeah,
but two straight games of 10 plus targets. Right, he's the overall tight end 4 right now, despite being a part-time player in week 1. Zach Ertz might be a little low.
He might be a little low. It's a very beatable Panthers team, and this could be a good spot for the Cardinals offense to really come together. I do like Zach Ertz as a tight end. He is, pretty much the last line of defense before you start getting into like streamer territory, unless you consider Tyler Conklin. he is the tight end 3.
He is overall in the season. Don't disrespect Tyler Conklin.
But heading in season, Zach Ertz was pretty much the line between like good every down starting tight ends, and then your streamers and the upside guys that you shoot for. I think he might be a little low, but I think
okay. I'm gonna redo the tight end rankings right now off my head. Ready?
6 is conservative. Go ahead.
Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, Dallas Goedert, and number 4, Zach Ertz. Number 5. George Kittle. Number 6, Kyle Pitts. I'm moving up Kyle Pitts to 1.
And Darren Waller's all the way down to 7. Jeez. All right.
I think so.
I see that. It's a tough matchup. Denver.
These guys are all in a very similar tier to me. But it's like Zach Ertz has been actually getting the targets. He's running around on every drop back. So, I kind of feel like Zach Ertz should belong there. And closer to the top because he's just more dependable, it seems like to me at this point.
And like I said, Denver has a very good defense. They've been carrying them through games. So Darren Waller might not see all the upside. When you take a Raiders offense that's been in a funk and you put them against a Broncos offense that's just been not Broncos offense, Broncos defense that's just been on fire, you have to wonder maybe Darren Waller's ceiling might be a little bit capped.
Well, Denver did allow touchdowns to both Will Dissly and Colby Parkinson in week 1. So maybe there's some hope that Darren Waller finds the end zone this week.
Maybe. A silver lining. Yeah. Way to pick it out. Way to pick it out.
But yeah, so Kyle Pitts, the thing is with Kyle Pitts is like, can we put it together, right? You got the route participation that we want in week 1 and week 2. You got the targets and the production in week 3, but you didn't get the route participation went way down. Like, can we get both so we know that you're okay? Like to start moving forward.
I'm more confident in Pitts going into this week than the first 2 weeks because, like I said, there's something to build on from last week where he didn't have that the first 2 weeks.
No, for sure. I have TJ Hawkinson at 8. He gets a bump. If Amon-Ra St. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown is out this week, so he gets a bump. Maybe I'll move him up over Pitts. No, I'm just kidding. But I got Tyler Conklin at 9 here. He's the overall tight end 3, like you mentioned, on the year. Double-digit PPR fantasy points every single week through 3 weeks. 4 receptions, followed by 6 receptions, followed by 8 receptions last week. We will see how Zach Wilson utilizes him. But from a route participation standpoint, 80% on the year. Very solid. Very solid there. All right, moving on. I got 10 at 10. We got Tyler Higbee here, and then at number 11, he's been getting the targets. Tyler Higbee. It seems like he's the number 2 target behind Cooper Kupp at this point.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. He's getting all these targets, and he's like, we haven't seen awesome production from him. That kind of makes him Mr. Inefficiency, but he gets very nice targets. It's weird because Allen Robinson's there. This isn't how we expected it to be going. But as of right now, you're right. Higbee might be the second option.
Yeah. So 11 through 20 here, we have Pat Frymuth at 11, Gerald Everett at 12. That rounds at the tight end ones. David Njoku finally had a big game last week. The actual usage met the route participation, that he saw over the first couple weeks. So hopefully that can continue. We knew it was going to happen at some point because he was running a route on almost every dropback. So it's like the protection is going to come at some point. Now I had Dalton Schultz at 14 here, and this might be a little low. Like he should be back this week. He got a limited session on Thursday. We don't know if he gets a full-time role this week, because of him coming back off the injury. We haven't seen him produce with Cooper Rush just yet. So I have him outside my top 12 for now.
I think.
Would you start him over guys like Njoku, Everett, Frymuth? Okay.
No. I think it's fair because you look at the game, even when he was healthy with Cooper Rush, he had one catch, I think, for like 8 yards, something like that. He put up a very dismal performance. Cooper Rush wasn't really targeting him at all in that game. And then, he's out last week. And I think, as a resident Cowboys fan, I know Dallas likes their tight end depth. They have two guys that can fill in, Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot. Don't roster either of them. Don't trust them to be a fantasy producer for you, or don't stream them as an option behind Dalton Schultz.
Is that who you picked up before Monday night's game? Hendershot?
No, I didn't pick up Hendershot. I picked up. So in that league,
did you hear what I just called him? I just called him Pendershot. Like I have no idea who this guy is.
No, so I didn't pick him up because I didn't think that either of them were going to do anything.
Okay.
And they were all right. Nothing noteworthy for fantasy. You don't have to worry about them. But I realized I had Dalton Schultz still in my lineup, and I was writing out the game time decision thing.
Oh, I see.
So I ended up picking up like a backup to the backup Giants tight end, and it didn't work out. I still won because the rest of my team was all right, but gotcha. That was rough. But yeah, they have two tight ends that they like behind Dalton Schultz. They're not going to rush him back, I don't think.
Okay, got it. Okay, sounds good. So yeah. So who else here? Who do we have? So we have Evan Ingram at 15, Dawson Knox, Robert Tonyan, Irv Smith, Hayden Hurst, and Logan Thomas to round out the top 20. And I do want to point out Tonyan. His route participation has gone up every week so far, 45% to 50% to 60% over the past 3 weeks. And he was targeted on 33% of his routes last week. So if that participation comes up, right, even more, we might see some legit targets, going his way. So something to keep an eye on, a prospective ad before Sunday, given he's still available in a lot of leagues. He could potentially, if you're at need at the tight end position, he's still available. And if you're shaky there, he could be somebody that ends up being a better long-term ad than the tight end you have right now.
Right. And it's tough because, at this point in the rankings now, it's hard to call these the top 20 because outside the top 7 or 8, you're pretty much pulling straws. But Robert Tonyan, he has Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback, and there's still, even though Romeo Doubs looked really good, I don't think he's necessarily cemented as his wide receiver one. So if he's going to be looking anywhere outside of Romeo Doubs, it's probably going to be Tonyan, who he has played with, I think the most of all his receivers at this point. So you look for the familiarity there. We've seen Tonyan do his thing before. He was very touchdown dependent. He was a very good tight end. What was it? Was it 2020?
I think so. 2020.
He was actually very good. He was touchdown
super
dependent.
Efficient. Yeah, super efficient.
Touchdown dependent. But he was very good. So if he could get back to that kind of production, or even anything close to that, he could easily finish his top 12, have multiple top 12 weeks in your league.
Can't forget about Randall Cobb. He's probably the most familiar receiver with Aaron Rodgers, but he's not that good anymore.
I mean, I thought maybe he was questionable. I might have missed something. I wasn't sure if he was injured or what.
Maybe. I haven't seen that. Like, if I see Randall Cobb hurt, it just doesn't affect my brain.
Yeah.
It doesn't permeate my brain.
Oh, that's what it was. So it was last week. I guess he had an illness or something. But I saw that he was questionable for a short time, I think. The Sleeper app shows up and says, they give you those notifications. They're like, your player is no longer healthy. He's questionable. Oh, yeah. It's like, oh, that's the best. It's like my whole line of screen lights up like a Christmas tree with all the questionable designations. It's just like the worst.
It's funny that Dawson Knox is sitting over there at 16. Somebody we had he's high not dependable right now. Yeah. It's possible that he does his thing this week, with a potential shootout. So, if you're choosing out of this group, maybe you go with Dawson Knox this week, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people were depending on him as a potential low end tight end one. Maybe had top 5 upside, but that is not looking like the case at this point. But that's it. That's all we got, guys. Again, if you want the full rankings, including flex rankings, you can check out the Patreon. Link is in the description for this episode, or just Google Upper Hand Fantasy Patreon. You'll find it. Or you can go to upperhandfantasy.com. You'll see it there. Blurbs will be included at some point today. You'll find sleepers for this week, some deeper options if you're looking for that. Make sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. Use code UPPERHAND to get your first deposit doubled up to $100 for a chance to multiply your money on your entries up to 20x. What you put in for this Sunday, and you can start taking a look at those pick'ems today because they are already up. So put those entries in. But that's it. That's all we got. Guys, have a great weekend. Zach, you have a great weekend as well. We'll see you guys soon on Sunday. We're going live pretty much all morning. I think it's starting at 10:30. I'll be live with Lawrence, Lower Don't Lose on Twitter, and we're going to keep going on all the way up until kickoff. So we'll see you guys there. I'll take it easy. See ya. Peace. Bye. I'll see you later. Bye, guys. Have a good weekend. Good luck.